Words of our Divine Mother from the book Discover the Divine, Part 4, Subtopic The Steps to Take. Our Divine Mother says, this is the first thing necessary, aspiration for the Divine. The first moment of aspiration is this. You have a kind of vague sensation that behind the universe there is something which is worth knowing, which is probably for you do not yet know it, the only thing worth living for, which can connect you with the truth, something on which the universe depends, but which does not depend upon the universe, something which still escapes your comprehension, but which seems to you to be behind all things. I have said here much more than the majority of people feel about the thing, but this is the beginning of the first aspiration, to know that, not to live in this perpetual falsehood where things are so perverted and artificial. This would be something pleasant, to find something that is worth living for. The next thing you have to do is to tend this aspiration, to keep it always alert, awake, and living. Our Divine Mother says, instead of telling yourself once in a while, oh yes, I am thinking of finding the Divine, just when there is something unpleasant, when you are a little disgusted because you feel tired. Indeed, there are very many flimsy reasons. All of a sudden, you remember that there is such a thing as yoga, something like the Divine, to know who can get you out of this flatness of life. And for that, what is required is concentration. Concentration upon the Divine, with a view to an integral and absolute consecration to its will and purpose. This is the second step. That is to say, you begin wanting to know the Divine and live it. You feel at the same time that the thing is so precious, so important, that your entire life is not sufficient for acquiring it. Then the first moment is a self-giving. You tell yourself, I do not want any longer to belong to myself for the sake of my little personal satisfaction. I wish to belong to this marvelous thing which one must find, must know, must live, and for which I aspire. Our Divine Mother says, concentrate in the heart, enter into it, go within and deep and far as you can. Gather all the strings of your consciousness that are spread abroad, roll them up, and take a plunge and sink down. Naturally, when I speak of the heart, I do not mean the physical organ, the viscera, but the psychological or the psychic center of the being, says our Divine Mother. Make it the most important need is the next topic. I don't know to whom I was mentioning this today. I think it was for a birthday. No, I don't know now. It was to someone who told me he was 18 years old. I said that between the ages of 18 and 20, I have attained a constant and conscious union with the Divine Presence, and that I have done this all alone without anyone's help, not even books. When a little later I chanced upon Vivekananda's Raja Yoga, it really seemed so wonderful to me that someone could explain something to me, and it helped me realize in only a few months what would have otherwise taken years. Our Divine Mother says, I met a man, I was perhaps 20 or 21 at that time, an Indian who had come to Europe, who had told me of the Gita. There was a French translation of it, rather a poor one, I must say, which he advised me to read, and then he gave me the key, his key. It was his key. He said, read the Gita, this translation of the Gita, which really wasn't worth much, but it was the only one available at that time. In those days, I wouldn't have understood anything in other languages, and besides, the English translators were just as bad. And well, Sri Aurobindo hadn't done this yet. He said, knowing that Krishna is the symbol of the immanent God, the God within, that was all. Read it with that knowledge, with the knowledge that Krishna, the Lord Krishna, represents the immanent God, the God within you. Well, within a month, the whole thing was done. So, some of you people have been here since the time you were toddlers. Everything has been explained to you. The whole thing has been served to you on a silver platter, not only with words but through psychic aid in every possible way. You have been put on the path of this inner discovery, and then you just go on drifting along. When it comes, it'll come, if you even spare it that much thought. So that's how it is. A Divine Mother says, but I am not at all discouraged. I just find it rather laughable. Only there are far more serious things. For example, when you try to deceive yourself, that is not so pretty. One should not mix up cats and kings. You shall call a cat, a king, and human instinct, and not speak about things divine when they are utterly human, nor pretend to have supramental experiences when you are living in a blatantly ordinary consciousness. Our Divine Mother says, if you look at yourself straight in the face, you see what you are. And then if by chance you should resolve to, what really astounds me is that you don't even seem to feel an intense need to do this. But how can we know? Because you do know. You have been told over and over again. It has been drummed into your heads. You know that you have a divine consciousness within you, and you can go on sleeping night after night, playing day after day, doing your lessons and infinitum, and still not have a burning desire, and you will come into contact with yourself. Yes, the you just there inside, motion towards the center of the chest. Really, it's beyond me. Our Divine Mother says, as soon as I found out, and no one told me, I found out through an experience, as soon as I found out that there was a discovery to be made within myself, well, it became the most important thing in the world. It took precedence over everything else. And when, as I told you, I chanced upon a book or an individual that could give me just a little clue and tell me, here, if you do such and such, you will find your path. Well, I charged into it like a cyclone, and nothing could have stopped me. And how many years have you all been here? Half asleep? Naturally, you are happy to think about it now and then, especially when I speak to you about it, or sometimes when you read. But that fire, that will which plows through all barriers, that concentration which can triumph over everything. Now, who was it that asked me what you should do? The child says, me. Well, that's what you have to do, my child. I've just told you, says our Divine Mother. Next subtopic, stepping back. Our Divine Mother says most of us live on the surface of our being, exposed to the touch of external influences. You live almost projected, as it were, outside your own body, and when you meet some unpleasant being similarly projected, you get upset. The whole trouble arises out of your not being accustomed to stepping back. You must always step back into yourself. Learn to go deep within. Step back and you will be safe. A Divine Mother says, do not lend yourself to the superficial forces which move in the outside world. Even if you are in a hurry to do something, step back for a while and you will discover to your surprise how much sooner and with what great success your work can be done. If someone is angry with you, do not be caught in his vibrations, but simply step back and his anger, finding no support or response, will vanish. Always keep your peace, resist all temptation to lose it. Never decide anything without stepping back. Never speak a word without stepping back. Never throw yourself into action without stepping back. All that belongs to that indeed is worth having. All that belongs to the ordinary world is impermanent and fugitive. So there is nothing in it worth getting upset about. What is lasting, eternal, immortal, and infinite, that indeed is worth having, worth conquering, worth possessing. It is the divine light, divine life. It is also supreme peace, perfect joy, and all mastery upon earth, with the complete manifestation as the crowning. When you get the sense of the relativity of things, then whatever happens, you can step back and look. You can remain quiet and call on the divine force and wait for an answer. Then you will know exactly what to do. Remember, therefore, that you cannot receive the answer before you are peaceful. Practice that inner peace. Make at least a small beginning and go on in your practice until it becomes a habit with you. These are the words of our Divine Mother. Let's discover the divine.